Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are here to do the first episode of 2026 for my Now or Never series. I think this is the 7th episode overall. And this year, the goal with this series is to finish off my fiction shelves on this bigger unit. My husband's books are over here, but mine are all over here. I have 4 fiction shelves that I have not yet done an Now or Never episode for, and they are these 4 shelves right here. So we have 2 hardback, 2 paperback, and then maybe we might even get over here. You never see the shelves down there. They're covered with the box right now, but we might make it over there. But we're gonna start here first, and we're gonna do this top hardback shelf because I have done 3 paperback shelves so far and only 2 hardbacks. So I'm gonna go over there. So like always, I'm going to take you over to the shelf and show you what's there. Here is the shelf. Take a look at these books, see what we have going on here. And I would say I know immediately the ones that I wanna read the most are both of the ones on the end, so Magdalena the Sinner, and then over here the Olga Round book, The Wax Child. So those are the most recent additions to this shelf, so it makes sense that I want to read them. And then the ones that I'm most nervous about, I would say, probably Devil House. I've heard a ton of mixed reviews for this, so that one makes me a little bit nervous. Nervous for After Parties. Kind of heard the same thing. It's a short story collection that was published posthumously, and I've just heard mixed reviews. And then also the Brandon Taylor. I would say that one I'm nervous because I didn't like the last book I read by him. So those are the ones I'm nervous of. Those are the ones I'm excited for. Let's see what I get. Welcome back. We are in the picking portion of the video, and you got to see a little look on what I'm afraid of, what I want to get, and a bunch of stuff in between. So we don't have the bowl today. We have a bag, so we're gonna go with that. And it's easier to judge them. That's why I'm doing the bag this time. And like I did in my last episode last year, I just have everything together. I'm not splitting them out between what's available for an audiobook or not. I'm just gonna grab 2 of them. Okay, so I pulled one out of the bag. Okay. Okay. I looked before I showed you. I'm so sorry. I picked Real Life. Also, you can probably barely see my handwriting, but that says Real Life, which is definitely one of the ones that I was nervous for. Okay, let me grab it. It's just right here. Easy grab. So the main reason why I'm nervous for this one is I read Filthy Animals last year and I did not like it very much. So I still have hope for a novel. Filthy Animals was a short story collection. I still have high hopes for his novel, and I've heard great things about this. This is a lot of people's favorite Brandon Taylor book. So I'm still gonna try it, but I am nervous because I did not like the last thing I read from him. So there's Real Life, selection number 1. Okay, we're gonna do the second one. I'll tell you more about the book once I actually start vlogging and reading it, but that's the first selection. Lately in the Now or Never episodes, I've been getting covers that match each other. So we'll see if that ends up happening today. I don't even know. There are some other orange books on there. All right. Oh, I really want to get one of the ones I want. Okay, I got one. I will show you first. Oh, fuck. Okay, I got Devil House. I swear I'm excited to read all the books on my shelves, even though it doesn't seem like it. Okay, let me grab it. Okay, here's Devil House. Whew, okay, deep breaths. This is a weird time to be reading this book because this is a haunted house novel, and this one I'm nervous about just because I've heard a lot of mixed reviews. I'm so hopeful that I could be one of the people that really enjoys this. It's fairly long, Real Life is a decent length as well. So, oh God. This is over 400 pages, and I think this is almost 400 pages. Oh no, this one's only 330, something like that. So not too bad. All right, we have picked the 2. Do they match? Maybe the tiniest bit. So these are the 2 that we are reading for this vlog. If you have read any of these, let me know what you thought about them down below, and we'll see if your thoughts match mine by the end of this. So let's get on with it. Welcome back. We're here to do an update on Devil House because this is the one I decided to pick up first. Mainly because I am afraid of real life. I'm afraid of real life. I'm worried about starting it just because I had such high hopes when I read Filthy. Anyway, we're not here to talk about this. I'm gonna let that go. But no, I'm afraid. So I start with the horror book, which I am less afraid of. So this update, I'm gonna be honest. If you see where my bookmark is, it is here. I have 50 pages left. So I've read 350 pages without giving you an update. But I just kept putting it off because this book I think is hard to describe. So I'm going to start with just a synopsis and some initial thoughts about this, and then I'll probably wait to do my review until I finish it, the last 50 pages, and then kind of put it all together. So this book is a horror novel, crime novel. It's kind of a genre blend of both of those. And the reason why I wanted to pick this up is I had heard that it is a commentary on true crime in general, and like the ethics of telling those stories and the impact of telling those stories, and how you can never really tell the story holistically or correctly because everybody has their own bias. And that I think was really intriguing for me. I'm not much of a consumer of true crime, but it is a phenomena that I know lots of people around me consume, and just kind of like the world at large. I was interested in some commentary around it. So the setup of this novel is we're following a journalist. What is his name? Gage. And he is a true crime author. He's written, I think, 2 previous books, and you're getting a lot of POVs in this book, but I think the anchor point is you're getting his POV of writing the story of Devil House. So there is this meta fictional element going on. It begins with him purchasing Devil House because his agent thinks that it's a really good opportunity for him to write his next book. The crime that was committed there has never really had much press coverage, and that house is really cheap. It's basically dilapidated. So our protagonist and novelist, Gage, buys it and he moves in there, and then we're getting the process of him moving in, of starting to interview the people involved with the case, and of grappling with his own thoughts about how he's going to tell the story. Additionally, we're getting lots of other POVs, so POVs that all branch out from Gage in different ways. So we're getting the persons of interest or people that were involved, whether adjacently or directly, with the Devil House crime itself. But then we're also getting POVs from people from previous cases that he's covered and how that has impacted him. We're getting POVs from the murderers, while most of the POVs are told in third person. Some of the POVs are not. So for example, like some of the POVs are told in second person. So this book is trying to do a lot of things, but I would say that's the general setup and important stuff to know going into it. I am overall like enjoying it enough to keep reading, and I'll probably leave it there since I've already been talking for a second and give you just my general review on how I think the execution is playing out and some like a bigger understanding about the themes or the questions of this book. So that's Devil House for now, really close to finishing it, and then I'll give you a little review. So I'll see you then. Hello, I'm in the same spot as yesterday because this is where the light is right now, but it is a new day. It is the next day, and I have finished Devil House, which makes sense because I didn't have very much left. So I wanted to give you some full thoughts and reviews now that I finished up the last chunk, and I do think the last chunk is very impactful for the book as a whole and does ultimately change a little bit of what I think about the book in a good way, question mark. I guess I don't really know. But my thoughts on this book is that it is really a huge undertaking. It is trying to accomplish a lot of stuff, which we're going to get into a bit. But ultimately, I think it bit off a little bit more than it could chew, and I don't think it's successful in everything I think it's trying to make an impact on. So let me tell you what I mean. I know I talked about last time that this is really like, it's a commentary on true crime in a lot of ways, and also just a commentary on writing stories about other people, writing true stories, nonfiction stories about other people, and all the consequences, good, bad, and everything in between that has for each person that story touches, whether they're the writer of the story, whether they're connected to the writer of the story, whether they're impacted by the story the writer is telling because it involves them in some way or it involves someone they know. There's so much impact when you tell a nonfiction story and when you label it as nonfiction, because every choice of what you put in and what you leave out says something. Every one of those choices says something and has consequences. So in that sense, I think the book is really fascinating, and there's a lot to dig into here because the book makes a lot of interesting choices. And this metafictional element of, we're talking about the consequences of writing stories while we're reading a story, is kind of mind trippy, and I really loved that part of the book. Some of the parts that I felt like it didn't execute as well, or maybe the impact didn't land that I think the author was trying to have, is the alternating points of view. And I don't mean necessarily like who is narrating that section, the who, but like the actual point of view. Like, is it first, second, or third? Is it omniscient or limited? All of those types of choices, the author makes a ton of them in the book, and it is pretty confusing to follow. And I think it's trying to be confusing a little bit. Maybe not confusing. I think it's trying to show the scope of perspective, and it's trying to put like you in a perspective when it switches to second person because it wants the reader to be like involved. We also have impact as the reader. We're involved in the consequences of what the author put in, and we're involved and complicit in the consequences of what happens for the people who the story is about, right? So like I think those choices make sense, but it gets jumbled and it gets confused. And I think if we could have sectioned the book a little bit differently, it would have made more sense, at least for me as a reader. I was starting to get confused as to like, okay, there's like multiple people that are in the third person. Like, which one is this? What relationship do they have to everyone in the book? Because every relationship is very important, and not just like, okay, this is the friend of the writer. It's like, okay, but the friend of the writer, what's their connection to this other person? What's their connection to this person? Because you have to remember all of those to, I think, get the full breadth of what this story is trying to do. And that just, it was too much for me to keep track in my head, honestly. And this is like one of the very rare times where I wish a book would have helped me out as the reader a little bit more and baked in reminders about the connections and what I as the reader need to remember. I almost never say that. It is actually a huge pet peeve of mine when, for me, I feel like the writer is treating me like I'm dumb and can't remember things and repeats things that I'm like, okay, I get it. You don't need to keep saying it. This is one where I'm like, okay, Jesus Christ, I need to remember like 50 things about this and I can't keep all of them straight. So like a gentle nudge or descriptor would have been really helpful. I'll pause there because I've already said a ton about the book. Overall, I would say the book is really intriguing. I think what it's trying to say is something that we absolutely should talk about when it comes to nonfiction writing. I think the ethics of nonfiction writing are much different than fiction. And even a story that like we seemingly praise probably has wide sweeping consequences that we can't even imagine. And then I think there's this kind of more extreme question around, should we be writing this like narrative nonfiction about specific people at all? Very fascinating. And can a story ever actually really be true, like true nonfiction. Questions to think about. So fascinating. I would say, like, I think this book has so much worth reading in it, which is why I would recommend it. But I think it struggles. And there are parts where if you're like me, you're going to struggle to get through. So it's not necessarily like an enjoyable reading experience or a favorite book of the year. But I would love more books to talk about the subject matter that this book is trying to talk about. So that is Devil House. Overall success. I get why it had so many mixed reviews. I feel sort of mixed about it myself, but I'm happy to have read it, and it gave me a lot of food for thought. So I'm going to now switch over to real life, and I will check back in with you once I've started reading it.
I just want to see you fair one more time. But across the line, just want to see you stay one more night.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here to give you a few updates, but let's address the elephant in the room, which is my hair is extremely short. It's extremely short. I'm acknowledging it, and I am rolling with the vibe, even though this is not what I asked for. I asked for a shoulder length bob. Does this look like a shoulder length bob to you? No, it does not. No, it does not. But I'm rolling with it. I'm gonna have fun with the adventure of a new hairstyle to me, but I'm addressing it because it is a drastic difference from how I started this video. So now that it has been addressed, we can continue on with the books. Let's talk about real life. This is what I was about to pick up when I last spoke to you, and I will report back that this was very quickly a DNF for me. I think this is my realization that Brandon Taylor is just not an author for me, and that's okay. So many people love him, and I think I can kind of see why, but he's just not for me. So this, I think I only read about like 25-30 pages and knew that it wasn't gonna work. The story is following, God, what's his name? Wallace. And you kind of enter the story where he seems to have grown distant from his friend group, and he's starting to reintegrate. And I'm sure this is going to be a, deeply character-driven novel about a young queer Black man. That tends to be what Brandon Taylor writes about. And the reason why I knew that this should be a DNF and why I think he's not for me is I felt like this was really contrived, which I hate to say, but I felt that about his last book as well. The characters in his last book felt like it was really contrived. They did not feel like real people to me, and it's just like something rings false about them, and I don't like it. And Filthy Animals, his short story collection, to remind you, is what I read before, and I felt the same way about that, and this felt extremely similar to Filthy Animals, where it's like toxic relationships that just seem a little bit absurd to me. So yeah, it's a DNF, and I will not be picking up Brandon Taylor again. I just don't think it works for me, but so many other people love him. This was a Booker nominated book, so what do I know? But it's not for me, so I will be getting rid of this one. And that means we need to pick again from the shelf because I'm DNFing this one. So I have brought the bag. I'm not using the bowl, I'm using a bag because it's easier to mix around the little slips of paper. So I'm gonna mix it around, really get a good mix. I'm gonna pull one out. Oh, I pulled multiple out. I'm gonna pick up one. They fell out on the coffee table. Here is the one. Oh, okay. It's brewed, if you couldn't read that. It says brewed. Let me go grab this off the shelf. All right, we have brewed. This is by Jackie Polzin. I think it's by Doubleday. Yes, it's by Doubleday. This is a surprising pick. I don't know when I would have picked up this book, so I'm grateful to this project for picking it up for me. So I heard about this book a few years ago on Ink and Paper blog, that channel. I will link the channel down below, and he loved this book. All I remember is it's about chickens, hence why it's called Brood. But I don't remember much else about it at this point in time, but I picked it up solely off the back of his recommendation. I think I did get it used, so I saw it somewhere and was like, oh, I'll get it. Let me see what this is even about. Over the course of a single year, our nameless narrator heroically tries to preserve her brood of 4 chickens, despite the seemingly endless challenges that caring for another creature entails. Okay, and what I also think I remember is that this has to do with grief, or maybe I'm mixing this up with Foul Eulogies, which is also a book about chickens and grief, but I do think this one is too. So I'm gonna start this one. When I just took a look in, there is a ton of white space and the font is really big, which I like. So I might get through this pretty quickly, but we're going to pick up Brood. So I will check back in with you once I've read some. Welcome back. We are here to give an update on Brood, and I have actually finished this, so I didn't give you a partial update. But before I give you an update on this, I wanted to throw out a PSA if you live in Seattle, that I went to this matcha place recently called Offline Matcha. It's fairly new and it is so good. I took a couple clips. It's in Cap Hill, so if you're in the Seattle area, highly recommend. I had a banana bread matcha. It was phenomenal, and Kenny got a osmanthus matcha, also incredible. But I also picked up some chopstick holders that they have there. They sell locally made ceramics, and I was able to pick up a couple pairs of chopstick holders that I love. I've been looking for some. Here is the Snap Pea. Let me do the influencer hand. The Snap Pea, oh my gosh, it is so cute. So I got a set of this one, and then I also got a set of scallions, also adorable. Love it. So very pleased with those. Now back to Brood. This book, I think I originally told you, is about chickens. There is a woman, unnamed narrator, who is caring for 4 chickens, and it does definitely have to do with grief. This is one of those books. This is a book that is dealing with the loss of a child, so I would know that as a trigger warning going in. This specifically is an instance of having a miscarriage, and then the caring for the chickens, I think, is meant to be seen as like a coping mechanism and sometimes a metaphor for grief and loss. And I do think I have read a number of books like this in the past, and I think that has colored my experience of this, because I just don't think that this book ultimately did much for me. I didn't get a lot out of it. And that very much could be, I've read other books that are similar in theme and what it's trying to express about the unique grief of losing a child, but I don't think it did anything new, and I don't think it did it even maybe as well as some of the other books that I have read. I think on a sentence level, this book is well written. Some of the sentences I thought were really beautiful, but as a collection of its parts, the entire piece didn't really work that well for me and failed to have the emotional impact that I think this book wanted me as the reader to have. The one piece about Brood that I think was the most interesting was the way that she talks about marriage. Our narrator is married and is often contemplating her husband, not contemplating how her husband is processing the grief. It's more just like the mundane, everyday observation she has of her husband, and this process of witnessing someone else's life and being able to form a perspective on why they're doing the things that they're doing and what parts of their identity are important to them. So that part I did enjoy, but it's a small part of the book. So that is Brood. Ultimately, maybe a less satisfying ending that I would have hoped for. I, again, don't regret reading it, but it's not contributing to this subgenre in a way that I think sets it apart from any other book. It is very short though. I read it extremely quickly, so I don't begrudge it for the amount of time that it took. So that is Brood. This one will be leaving my collection. And that is the end of this video. I would say we had another successful edition of Now or Never. Devil House, I would say, had some fascinating commentary, and that was definitely my favorite of the bunch. I think the writing has some flaws, the formatting has some flaws, but very interesting discussions about stories in general, and I wish people would talk about that more. We had a DNF in Real Life, which I think I've already gotten rid of, so I don't even own it anymore. And then we had a finish, but I will also be getting rid of Brood. Happy to have experienced the author's writing and got some more books off of my shelves and read. So thank you for joining me. If you have read any of these books and have thoughts on them, please let me know. And I will see you all in the next video very soon. Bye.